Alright, so we're going to look at point-slope form today. So our objective here is to write linear equations in point-slope form and be able to manipulate into other forms. And you'll see the importance of why we need to manipulate those as we go through these notes. Okay, so here are our three forms of the equation of the line. Slope-intercept form, which is the y equals mx plus b. Standard form, which is says some number in front of the x plus some number in front of the y equals c. And then point-slope form, which says if you've got a point and a slope, then you can put those numbers where they belong in those three spots. And so you're basically going to always be writing into this little format. Okay, and we'll call this our skeleton. I've seen this in a few other videos that they call that their skeleton. And you plug in from there. Alright, so we want to write an equation in point-slope form. Let's start off with that. Notice here I'm giving you an example of a point and a slope. So what you're going to do is you're first going to write, this is our equation, or the form, and then we're going to say write the skeleton. And so we've got these numbers, and we're going to put those numbers where they belong. The y with the y, the x with the x, and the slope in the middle. So notice, y with y, x with x, slope in the middle. Okay, now the only thing, if I ask you in just point-slope form, then all I want to make sure is we change if we have any minus and negatives, we change them to pluses. Otherwise, leave it like that. Oopsie, there we go. So just leave it like that, and that should be just fine. Alright, so let's look at another example. Here's another point, -2, 1. And we're going to give you a slope of, I don't know, 6, -6. Okay, so again, notice how I'm starting off with my skeleton. Now, so again, started off with my skeleton, I've got it like this. Now, y with y, slope in the middle, x with x. And I'll change it up again just to clean it up a little bit. I don't like seeing minus and negative, so I'll make sure I write x plus 2, since minus -2 is x plus. And that's pretty much it. That's the most basic way we can do point-slope form. But, of course, it's never that easy. What happens if I give you 2 points? Well, if I give you 2 points, then I expect you to show me, again, what do you need for point-slope form? Well, as the name implies, you need a slope and a point. So, we got to find the slope. Which means, again, we got to subtract the y's over subtract the x's. And you can see here, -3 minus 6 is -9. -1 minus 5 is -6, which simplifies to 3 over 2. And guys, y'all should know how to simplify these type of fractions to whatever they should be. Okay, now, it doesn't really matter which point you pick, but I mean, obviously, the first one I would pick first. I mean, that's what I'm doing here. So you can see, cleaning up my negatives, so I get y plus 3 equals 3/2 x plus 1. If you gave me the other point, for example, y by 6, 3/2 x, parentheses, minus 5, I would accept that, because it doesn't matter. Believe it or not, both of these points, or both of these equations are the same, even though the numbers look slightly different. If we were to finish solving this out and getting this to slope-intercept form, you would see that they're basically the same. But I'm going to leave it like this because, in all honesty, unless you're in my pre-EP class, if I'm going to have a fraction here, then I'm going to make sure this number and that fraction will come out even. So you don't have to worry about the fractions too much. So keep in mind, this is from the book, and as what they're saying here is concept, summary, writing equations. You want to be able to, if you're given the slope and a point, you need to there's only 2 steps. Mainly the first step, substitution. If you're given 2 points, you first need to find the slope, find your m, then choose 1 of 2 points to use, and then substitute it in. Okay, so really this shouldn't be hopefully too much problem. Alright, so now I want to get to talking about transforming from point-slope form to other forms, such as slope-intercept or standard form. So the basic idea is if I'm in point-slope form, the first step I need to do is to distribute. Notice here, I'm already in point slope form, so I've already done the whole point slope bit part of it. Now let's distribute, and then your next step would be to add or subtract. So you distribute, then add or subtract, and you're pretty much done. That's slope intercept form right there. So I said 4 times x is 4x, 4 times 3 was negative 12. The opposite of a plus 2 was minus 2, and since these are both the same sign, negative 12 and minus 2, that would give me an answer of negative 14. Let's look at another example. Okay, here again, you're going to distribute. 2/3 x is 2/3 x. 2/3 times 6 is 4. And again, if you're not sure, just type it in the calculator. 2 divided by 3 times 6. See what you get for an answer, and you should get 4. And then I'm going to add 5 to both sides. There we go. And you get 2/3 x plus 1. Plus 1. And there you go. That's your answer. That's in slope-intercept form. Okay. Now, that's probably where I would go with mostly on quizzes or tests. But it is possible I could ask for converting it to standard form. And the reason why I would mention that, whoopsie, went a little too far there. The reason why I would mention that is because I want y'all to realize that a lot of times, especially on the STAR exam, they like to put things into standard form. So you need to be prepared for that. So here's a very simple example. I'm going to go through the same normal steps. Y minus, so I distribute first. Then I'm going to move the 4 over just like I did before. So it's almost like I'm going to slope-intercept form. But then after I've done this, I need to move the x over to the y. So the x now needs to join the y. So I'm moving the x over, and if it's a positive 1x, I'm going to put negative 1x. So now I have negative 1x plus y equals negative 3. Now, at this point, you need to realize that this negative has to become positive. The number in front of the x always has to be positive in standard form. So I'm going to change the sign of that, and if I do that, I change the sign of everything else. So that means my final answer is x minus y equals 3. Notice how I went from negative 1x to x minus y equals negative 3. I'm sorry, positive 3. Okay. So let's look at another example. Alright, so here I'm going to distribute. Then I'm going to move the 3 over. Then I'm going to move the 5x over to the y, because I want this in standard form. Now notice here, at this point, it's also already in slope-intercept form. This is already in slope-intercept form, so technically I'm just going a little further. Okay, so I'm going to move the 5x over, and since it's positive 5x plus y equals negative 38, whoopsie, I don't have to do anything. That's it, I'm done. That is standard form because I needed a positive in front of the x. I've got 5x plus 1y equals negative 38. And that's perfectly fine for standard form. Okay, last example, I think, yes. And this one's going to have a fraction. Be prepared, pre-AP. This should be for you. Alright, so I go ahead and distribute. Notice here, I'm still going to look at this as a fraction. Everything's staying the same. Distribute, move the 2 across, move the x back. Now I am purposely, oopsie, went too far. Hate it when I do that. I'm purposely putting this as a negative 3 on the bottom. So notice that when I'm moving this 5/3 x, and that's negative 5/3 x, negative 5/3 x, I'm moving the negative to the bottom. And there's a reason why. Because the next step for this, to solve this, let me make some space here, is to get rid of that fraction. Because if you want it in standard form, there should be no fractions. Fractions will come later. So what we're doing here is then we're saying that we need to say multiply to get rid of the fraction. So whatever number's on the denominator there, I'm going to multiply everything by it. So I'm going to multiply by negative 3. Negative 3 will cancel out here, leaving me 5x. Negative 3 times the y will give me negative 3y. And then negative 3 times a negative 8 would give me 24. Now, you might see a shortcut that you could do with that. Let's see if y'all can figure that out. But that's it for today. Now, keep in mind, this type of problem is definitely going to be on the pre-AP exam. So you got to make sure you understand. All right? Anyways, that's it for today. I hope you have it all ready for me tomorrow, and I will see y'all when I see y'all. Take care. Thank you very much.